give bigger applause for Paul Porter.
Never gets old, folks. It never gets old. Good morning, everybody. It's very nice to see you again. We are here back with the Smart Money Culture TV network. We're on your TVs in Texas and Louisiana, as well as streaming around the world on YouTube and X and LinkedIn, or not LinkedIn anymore, Rumble, and all the rest of them. It really has been an absolute great run, great time. Matt Dixon will be joining us shortly with the Market Watch report. I'll tell you what, guys. If I know that Trump says a lot of stuff, right? I mean, I always say that Trump says what he says. That's what he says too. But I'll tell you what, he's been floating, and it's a response. I mean, I put out a post. I'm not saying he's responding specifically to me, but I put out a post and said, really, we end the federal income tax, and that's how we do this, guys. That's how we do it. That will bring all of this crap this evil stuff that we don't like, all of these projects that's funding, all of the money being sent over to the Ukraine, all the money being sent over to Israel, the endless wars, all of the projects that you don't like, all of that multi-gender baloney that gets funded, all of this stuff, guys, it all comes down. It all comes down. You end the federal income tax. You go back to a system of tariffs, which is what he's advocating, which is what we did before 1913. We did tariffs. When the Fed took over, they took over. Everything changed. Basically, right, the Fed, and now we've lived on this credit system. The government's living on a credit system too. They're a debt slave as well. The government as a corporation is a debt slave to the cartel. They're a debt slave. They can't go against the cartel. They owe them $36 trillion, right? I mean, that's the way it works. You can't go against the guys that are printing the money, There you go. So they have now put the will of, and it's not a, they're all Israelis. I've talked about it many times. They're all Israelis, okay? The Federal Reserve, the cartel, the banking cartel, it's all Israeli people. And so they have total and complete control over the country by the money supply. That's why I have him up every day. End the Fed. We have to end the Fed. Thomas Massie has a plan to end the Fed. Now, if we end before 1913, everything was paid for in tariffs. Okay. Now, at that time, the gross domestic, the expenditures of the government was only 2% of the gross domestic product of the GDP. Okay. Now, government expenditures is 25% of the GDP. So you end income tax, and this thing goes ballistic. We get our country back. We're not debt slaves anymore. Everybody gets out of the system. I mean, it's unbelievable. If you had to pay your taxes like normal people, and I say normal people, I guess normal people now have a job, but if you had to pay your taxes and you didn't have it taken out every week, you guys would be here in D.C. saying it's time for a tea party with Bruce Porter Jr. Because this is insane. They take it out every week or every other week, so you just, whatever. You don't notice, I guess. You had to write that check at the end of the year, and if you don't write it at the end of the year, they fine you. They make you write it by the quarter because they don't want it to be so big. But think about it. I mean, even if you make $100,000 a year, and $100,000 a year, I think is kind of, you have to at least make that, I think, right? In order to survive. So if you make $100,000 a year, it's well over 30%, but 30% at the end of the year, you have to write in a check. You're not doing it. You don't do it. It doesn't happen. You do not write that check. You don't write the check. And that's why they make you pay every other week in your check to take it out. It's time for another tea party. Nothing has gotten me more riled up about Trump and more ready to just let's go get him, guys, than this. So 2% of the GDP before 1913 was what was spent, and that is easily covered in tariffs. 25% is not covered in tariffs. You're not going to be able to cover that in tariffs. That means we're going to close stuff down. I haven't been more excited to go vote for Trump this whole time. You get Trump in there, you get Elon in there, you get Kennedy in there. And these guys aren't perfect. And I'll tell you what, guys, you know what? Probably some of the stuff that drives you nuts, it's just them doing what they got to do, right? I mean, Melania comes out pro-abortion. Man, I was upset. I still am upset about that. How do I vote for this guy whose wife's coming out advocating for abortion on X? Man, ooh, that hit me. One of my best friends in high school, the doctors told his mom to abort him. He said, he's not going to be okay. You need to have an abortion, honey. And he turned out to be, he was like one of the most popular kids, loved by all. Wonderful human being. We're still friends. Has a beautiful wife, 2 wonderful kids. He is the apple of his mom's eye. And I just remember, even as a young kid, he's like, I'm so anti-abortion, but here's why. Said, well, man, I understand. So that was hard to take. That is still hard for me to take. But they're pandering, right? I mean, they're pandering. They're trying to get the votes. All right, I'm a big boy. I'll play along. You cut the federal income tax, and I'll forgive it. I still am anti-abortion. You better not stop. You better not push that stuff, okay? I am pro-life. I am pro-life. Adamantly pro-life. So, and the income tax, man, and that is just, wow, guys, wow. We're talking, I mean, I'm more IRS, those 87,000 agents they hired and gave them gun training. Why are you giving IRS gun training? IRS, the federal income, I mean, this is stuff, this is illegal stuff. This is not even supposed to be happening. We're not supposed to have an income tax. The government's not supposed to be this bloated. It turns everything around. Now, we got to be careful because people are going to end up, as we already see, people are going to end up being shot. They're already trying. That's what happens when revolutionary type of things happen like this. But ending the income tax would change everything. That would just change everything. That would force the size of the government to come down. Force these endless wars to stop. The Federal Reserve, the banking cartel, you wouldn't even have to really worry about closing them. Of course, you still want to close them. You want to end the Fed. But you wouldn't have to worry about closing them because you know what? All they're doing is giving credit to the U.S. government. They're just giving credit because they know they're going to tax us on the back end. But if they know the tax isn't there, they're going to stop giving the credit. They're not going to give them another $8 billion, $20 billion, as Yellen says, another $20 billion for the Ukraine. They won't do it. Why in the world would they print that money when they know it's never going to get paid back? They won't do it. They won't give another $8.2 billion to Israel. And the world will be a much more peaceful place. It will be a much more peaceful place. This is the most exciting thing that Trump has ever floated. And he's kind of floated it here and he's floated it there. I mean, this is definitely the direction he's going. It'll end 111 years of government rotting, milking Americans for everything they have to fund wars and evil crap. He would be right up there with George Washington. Maybe they would put him on Mount Rushmore. You'd have the Trump on that last little thing. Ending the federal income tax. Taking us back to 2% of GDP being spent on government from 25%. I talk about Xing as you see Sulky the dog, right? X. They already X'd once from the bottom. I mean, they did go low, but already, 100%. Talk about Xing. That's like 12x. 12x down. Changes everything. It changes everything. these people that have these government jobs, you also have to understand, then they're just slaves. I mean, yeah, they're nice little jobs. And when I was a kid, government jobs didn't pay like this. You had a government job, you were like a servant. If you want to make money, you went in the private sector. Now, if you want to make money, you go in the public sector, you go in the government. You can also go in private, but if you really want to make the big money, if you want a nice life, you go in the government. You get yourself a retirement from one job, and then you get yourself a retirement from the other job, and you get all the benefits, and you get this, and you get that, and that's what they do. It's a whole thing. It's crazy. And then they're totally slaves. They can't ever say anything about the government, anything about the machine that's paying them. They can't say anything against it. All right, let's talk the markets. I have the great Matt Dixon here. Sir Matt the Great. How are you?
Hey, I'm good, thank you. Good morning, Bruce. Good morning, everybody.
Good morning. How is it out there? How is the weather?
It's cooling down slightly. I don't know what it is. It's probably about 35, 36 degrees. So it's still pretty hot. But they say it just turns on a day here, it just gradually cooling a little bit. I mean, we're in the mid-40s through most of the summer. Yeah. And now we're down to mid-30s, which is better. But then come mid-November, it just switches and you go right the way down. You'll be needing a coat in the evenings.
That's awesome. And just Matt is in Dubai. If we didn't clarify that for people that don't know, yeah, it's so nice, man. January, February, it's like Miami in January and February.
Yeah, I remember Miami. Beautiful. Yeah, it can get hot and humid as well in the summer, can't it? But
yep.
Yeah. No. Good. Okay. Markets, well, they've been going pretty much according to plan. We've managed to squeeze some profits out. I hope you guys have squeezed profits out too.
For sure.
Yeah, let's just look at where we're at. So I'll jump into the one that I tend to trade the most. So I hope you can see that. In fact, that's not the one.
Here. The crowd favorite. Look at that chart, folks.
That is not. It's not actually the one I trade mostly, but it is actually an amazing one.
Oh, this is SUI.
SUI, yeah. So it's actually one of the real hot narratives, right? Well, not narrative, but the hot tokens really right now.
It really is. And one of the things that you can always look at is every event that you go, they're throwing like the best party, and that is a very good indicator to how much money they have.
Very true. Yeah. Yeah. So we can see that we appear to have finished 5 waves higher, though, because from this low point here, we got a 1, 2, 3 was exactly 1.618. We love that 1.618. Yep. That's probably where the end of 3 was, and that's normal. And then wave 4, and then maybe some kind of ending diagonal, wave 5. And then we got some, you can see here, if we drew a line on it, you've got basically downward sloping RSI peaks, upward sloping price peaks, telling you of regular bearish divergence. So we had a signal to sell. And yeah, it's been spot on. So it's been a lovely one, but being 5 waves up, we'll get a correction. I think there's still more to come with SUI, plenty more to come with SUI, and plenty more to come with the rest of the market. So we'll come on to the traditional assets in a minute, but I'm just going to touch on a couple of my favorites. Obviously, you all know I like to trade Solana because it tends to go up more when the market's going up and down more when the market's going down. So volatility.
Also, the more I've traded it now, because you're trading it so much, it's it reacts the way that it's kind of supposed to react most of the time.
Yeah.
It's not like shit where all of a sudden you're just like blindsided out of nowhere and it's up 20% or down 20% one way or the other. You know what I mean?
Yeah. I mean, Solana is basically the retail chain of choice. It's basically where all the memes are launched. So I think it's got a big future, and I think it's got a long way to go to the upside, but we may still have some more downside to come. So at the moment, this is my preferred count. So basically, I think we finished a wave 3 to the upside back in March of this year, March 24. We finished wave 3. That was a big impulse at the time. Took us to $209. Obviously, previously it was higher than that. But I think we're headed back up and probably going to challenge that previous all-time high of wherever it was, 258 or something previously. But at the moment, we've got a wave 3 here. And I think that we've got a triangle, A, B, C, D, E. Now, you could count it potentially as some other kind of consolidation. It could be a WXY, but it doesn't really matter. There's a little bit of uncertainty, but it is corrective because we know that because of all this overlap here. And you don't get that with, it's not an impulsive wave. This is a corrective wave. So at the moment or lately, although it's been going up, we can see from this C wave, we've been going up in a D wave, I think, to the upside. I've been selling consistently every time I see a peak. And actually, you can even do that even if the market's, going up. As long as you're careful and look for decent targets with good risk reward, and look for a few other indicators. You'll see one, I'll open it out in a minute, but you can see I've got a divergence drawn on here. But I'll open that out so you can see. But that's one of the reasons I've been selling. So I keep selling Solana every time we hit a peak, and then close it reasonably quickly because I'm waiting for the big move. And I think, according to my analysis, that there is a big downside move coming, but we still may have higher to go. And what gives me that, sort of conclusion is the fact that we have this overhead resistance line touching the previous pivot highs at wave 3 here, at wave B here, and potentially wave D. The pivot high would be somewhere around the 180-ish mark, somewhere around 180, maybe a touch above 180. So I'm selling because sometimes you don't quite reach the mark. Maybe maybe it is a WXY. It doesn't have to reach the trend line. So again, we're always talking about dollar cost averaging. And if you wait for it to touch the line, if it turns just below the line, you miss all of a potential downside trade there, and you're going to be very upset. But if you split your trade into maybe as many as 6 trades for dollar cost averaging on a particular asset, and you start jumping into shorts, and if it looks as though the movement down is corrective, then basically you just keep closing it. So when I put a short on, if the price comes down, if it's corrective, I'll probably just guarantee a bit of profit, and I take little profits all along. So I've just made, last few days, I made 3 or 4 little trades, all profitable because I'm not taking big risks. And if it moves into profit, I'll protect a small profit. And if price goes up again, which it has done, then I close out in profit and I live to fight another day. And we live to fight and sell from a higher price. And so what I'm doing effectively is just feeling my way in this market, which actually is treading water at the moment. We've got a situation, obviously, where we've got the US election coming up in, I think it's less than 2 weeks now, isn't it, Bruce?
It's less than 2 weeks. November 5th. I think it's like 11 days or something.
Yeah, interest rate decision, virtually the same time, a couple of days after. So some big news coming out in the market, and markets tend to tread water ahead of that news. And that's actually, this consolidation pattern we've got is actually very typical of the big run-up we've had towards this election. So we had a high in the markets and big run-up towards the election, but then a bit of treading water. And I think they're waiting for the outcome. And not only the election, we've got 3 big things on the horizon right now. Obviously, we've got the election, we've got the interest rate decision, and we've got geopolitical unrest in the Middle East. So all those things are 3 major uncertainties hanging over the market. Anything can happen. The most likely one at the moment is the interest rate decision. There's a 93% chance at the moment. The markets are predicting 93% chance of a 25 basis point cut in interest rates. So that would probably be a bit of a positive for the market because it's not a panic. It's following the 50 basis point cut we had last meeting. So followed now by 25 basis points. It just shows the Fed themselves are just feeling their way and watching the data. And at the moment, the US economy is actually looking reasonably stable. And hence, we've got really good performance on the assets. We may jump back to, in fact, what I'll do before I jump onto the others, I'll finish off with Solana. So this is the, a longish term look. You can see here wave 3, wave 4. Then we push up to wave 5, much higher, hopefully after this. But just to open it out and show you why I've been selling. So I don't really need to change the time frame, but no, I don't need to. I'll leave it on this 4-hour. It's good enough. So you can see pretty clearly now, I talk about this divergence signal a lot. It's one of the best signals, I believe, that I use, one of the most predictive. And so all I've done, just to make it, is very, very simple. Got the RSI, which is one of the best oscillators to use. And again, you can just use standard settings. And you can see that from a very much overbought situation with the RSI here, that basically we've got lower peaks in RSI, and yet at the same time, we've got a higher peak in price. And as I said before, what this is telling you is that there's just the big players have maybe taken profits already at this point. They took profits here, but the smaller, perhaps more retail type players are still driving price higher, but on less volume, because the retail players, the institutional players have already bailed out of the market, taking their profits, and it's just smaller retailers pushing it up. So they're not pushing it up with volume, but the net is still buying over selling, but it's just not with volume. So we can see the volumes receding and yet the price is increasing. That's a warning sign that the market is effectively run out of steam, and at some point very soon it's going to turn. And it tends to turn, really, really accurately on these signals. So you can see here we've got a signal. We got a very nice here. Is it a shooting star doji there, or is it? Can't quite see it on this time frame. Hangman perhaps. Basically, it's a bearish candlestick anyway, followed by more bearish candlesticks. But this bearish candlestick was enough for me to place a sell trade here. And then as soon as it moved into decent profit, just protect it. And I've actually closed out on this one already. So I closed this one this morning. But very often, if I think that we're actually at the top, I will just leave it running. And if I get stopped out, I get stopped out for guaranteed profit. But if it does continue to the downside, then it does. The only reason I closed out is I still think that we'll probably have a run at this overhead resistance before the run's over.
If Israel holds off, then I have to agree. And it looks
obviously it's all dependent. It does all depend on those things. So the three that I mentioned, obviously interest rates, I think, are in the bag now. We're going to get 25 basis point cut. The ones that aren't in the bag quite yet, obviously the election and Israel. They're major things. We know the election is 11 days away. We don't know, maybe Israel will hold off till after the election. So maybe in the last 11 days, we just continue to push a little bit higher. So the market we can see it's been pushing higher, and I call it climbing a wall of worry, because there's a lot of worry out there, but it's nothing is happening until these events actually materialize. And so maybe it's after the election. So up until the election, I suspect we may just continue to creep a bit higher. And, if we get up near there, I will actually add more and more, and I'll be DCAing around these levels near the top up here. If that happens, we could get a nasty little sell-off. It could be quite sharp. But as I said, I'm actually quite optimistic and hopeful that if we do get trouble in the Middle East, that there will be some kind of peace initiative comes out of it. A broad-reaching peace process, hopefully, that gives us reason for rallying the markets. I also think that the Fed softening on interest rates may actually stimulate the economy to keep the economy going. At the moment, we may be looking towards more of a soft landing. I think later on, though, we will be heading toward recession, and they'll have to lower rates more aggressively, and they will have to print more money. But before recession hits, I think actually the environment's going to be really rosy for risk assets, and then the election, of course, we'll need to wait to see what the election is. I understand Trump is more pro-crypto. I'm not sure what his attitude is, but I understand he also took a lead on basically people's sort of expectation of his economic management. They're saying now he's jumped ahead of the what's her name again?
Kamala.
That one.
Yeah.
That one. So
the thing is, he has optimism, and nobody thinks. I mean, I still think, to be totally frank, around here, everyone's voting Kamala. To be totally frank with everybody, and I've been saying that for quite a while.
Anyone I think goes on your side, not remembering her name. I'm not on anybody's side. I'm just on the trader's side.
Well, exactly, but there's no optimism coming out of her. Like, if she wins, they may pump the markets or whatever, but everyone's going to know it's kind of this empty stuff that we've had over the last few years.
To be honest, Bruce, I actually think that whoever wins, there'll be maybe a pump in the market, whoever wins, or there'll be a reaction in the market, whoever wins. But I think whatever it is, I think it'll be fairly short-lived, and then people will come back to fundamentals. Where are we really in the economy? What's happening? Anything that a new administration does is much more of a long-term situation, I would think.
Yeah.
But again, I just look at the charts, and as we said, that the events usually fulfill the charts. So
yes,
I'm quite happy with that. So yeah, that was, as you can see, a perfect sell. And if there's one indicator you want to learn above all the others that are out there that people talk about, I mean, actually, moving average crossover is just a very simple one here. I've mentioned it a couple of times, but just look at this. We got across the short moving average, the 50, crossed, just dipped below and then crossed above the 200. That's a buy signal. So the buy signal was here, all the way up here, and then potentially we got the sell signal here. So you can even use different indicators to open and close trades. This is a smart way to do it. This is actually a great indication here. You know exactly where to buy here. And it was a really good level. I mean, the first crossover was somewhere around the 140 level. And right now we just got a sell signal. So you open it here, you close it here, your signals there, and we've got candlestick confirmations on both sides of the trade. So again, it's nice and clear, and nice profits we had there. So we've looked briefly. We'll just jump back to wherever it's hidden there. Bitcoin again. Bitcoin again. I'll just have to shrink that one. Bitcoin again is looking as though potentially we're in a bit of a corrective mode from the top here. It's still possibly like Solana. It's a possible triangle. This E wave overshot the potential triangle. So we've got this dotted line here is the triangle trend line, and normally it sticks roughly within the exactly really within the trend lines. But the E wave is allowed to undershoot or overshoot. We got a modest overshoot, and interestingly, it went to a Fibonacci extension of a previous wave, 1.618 again, almost exactly. And then we've got some movement down. So it could be a triangle with the E wave complete, which would be a larger X wave, and then substantial downside to come. So I do think there's a bit of uncertainty going to unwind in the market and give us some downside personally. But following that, these are all corrective patterns. So following that, I'm really sure in my mind we're going to see new all-time highs for a lot of assets, including Bitcoin. So there's plenty of others we can look at, but I will jump into the traditional ones in a minute. Just some that I've been asked for. I was asked yesterday for ICP. We did that. I was asked for Injective as well. And somebody was saying, you know, they went into a buy trade, a long trade yesterday on Injective. Well, at the moment, this looks corrective to me. I looked at it longer term, and it actually is looking longer term. We've got lower lows and lower highs. That's in the long term. But this short term, obviously we've got higher highs here, but it's still a corrective move with lots of overlap. You can see the move down here massively overlap this move up here, and so on. This move down here overlap there. So all sorts of overlap. So I'm expecting probable downside, and if we opened it out again, we'd also see a very negative looking outlook short term. The only thing in favor right now is the fact that RSI is relatively low and has plenty of room for the upside. But from the bottom here, we've got some kind of corrective ABC, I think. So I think, again, we might see a little bit more push to the upside. You know, as we said with Solana, maybe we push to 180. But I think following that, we're going to see some substantial downside. So the traditional assets, we'll look first of all, let's just see gold. Gold reached all-time highs. We've got basically a 5-wave move down here. If you opened it out on a shorter time frame, it's 5 waves, and basically so it's going to be an ABC, I believe. So we got 5 waves up from this low point. We can count it quite clearly: wave 1, wave 2, wave 3, wave 4, wave 5. That's an impulse. So now we're expecting an A, a B, and a C down most likely, and then following the finish off with a small movement down. And I said we should expect some small corrections along the way. And corrections for me are buying opportunities and to add to your position, because you don't always put all your position in one go. Dollar cost averaging, buying bits and pieces, but basically I buy dips. So I'm waiting for a further dip here in gold, not much. So I'm not saying sell or take profits or anything, but if you're looking to add to your position, you never add while the market's rocketing to the upside. You wait for pullbacks in the market. And we're in the midst of a bit of a pullback, I think an ABC pullback here. So again, I'd be looking to add to my position perhaps if we don't go a little bit lower. And gold is obviously that hedge against uncertainty we're always talking about. So I think it's still a great asset to be building bigger and bigger positions for the time being as part of an overall diversified portfolio, of course. Looking at dollar index, pulled back a little bit on dollar index, but again, it's looking, just to scroll out a little bit on dollar index, we got this beautifully. To be fair, we've been at this show for a year now, and we've been following things like dollar index. We just caught them beautifully with the down move. But again, we said that this was a wave 3, wave 4, ending diagonal wave 5. We got some nice regular bullish divergence here, where we got basically higher lows in RSI, lower lows in price. That gave us a signal to buy the dollar, and the dollar rocketed to the upside accordingly. So again, really nice. Just understand the indicators, follow the indicators, use different indicators. And once again, here, we also got that moving average crossover, which I told you, the 50 crossing above the 200. Admittedly, the price is already here, because you've got to actually align it. The price is already here. But even so, dollar still rallied sharply from there. So another nice indicator. Right now, we've got massive divergence between the 50 and the 200. And there's no particular divergence in place as far as I can see. Let's just see. Yeah, we did actually get a small divergence at the top here, and that's actually towards the sell. So again, just to draw that in, just to show you, it's good to do this as we actually live on the show. We can actually just about see that we got a lower peak in RSI and a corresponding, if we just line it up there perfectly, it's from here to here. We got very nice regular bearish divergence. So that told us the sell-off in gold there. So very, very precise. So again, beautiful signals that can actually give you the precise entry and exit points for assets. So this one's really good. So following the move up, probably get a modest pullback in the form of an ABC most likely, and then probably back to the upside again. So that was a beautiful signal there. Oil has pulled back a little bit, again, a reflection of reduced risk for the time being. The fact that probably nothing is going to happen with Israel for the time being. I think they'll wait until after the election. But there is potential. At the moment, it's actually quite uncertain. It's in what I call no man's land. I wouldn't look to trade oil from here, although I would look to potentially look at higher oil prices just based on Israel. But don't forget, the world economy in general is slowing. Even the US is moderating, I would say, and that's why the Fed are reducing interest rates. So that in mind, we're getting less and less consumption. So less demand means potentially lower oil prices. But the counter to that is if there's trouble with Israel, oil prices will rocket. So that's why it's in no man's land, bit of a mixed bag, not an easy one to trade. SPX again, a little bit of a pullback from the all-time high. Again, if we scroll out, we'll see that very clear, very simple signal, but very clear signal here. You can see all this was buy, by the way, because we got the 50 above the 200. I'm just trying to scroll back and back. There's the crossover here. So when S&P price was 4,500, we had a buy signal with this very simple indicator, 50 crossing the 200. At this price here, 4,500. Right now, the price is 5,809 right now. So what are we talking there? Massive in percentage terms. And that was just given us by this simple signal here. Piece of cake. Can't be simpler than that. So trading can be simple, but it's just all about mastering your fear, mastering greed, following some sensible signals, and managing risk reward effectively. And anybody can make money. Well, I say anybody. You follow the simple rules, you can do. So that's pretty much it. Obviously, I can jump into all sorts of different assets. We've got the pullback we're expecting with XRP from this C wave. We've got an ABC higher, which, as we know, is corrective. We've basically got the beginnings of a move down. Again, beautiful. I'm just trying to see. Yeah, got some nice divergence, I think. No, there wasn't divergence actually in this case. So no divergence signal, but we did have a nice ABC with nice Fibonacci relationship telling us of the sell here. And we also did have a crossover, the 15 to 200 from here. So that would have been a sell from actually around here. So if you'd done that, you could have protected it down here. You'd have taken a profit here. So we'll wait for the next crossover. So I think that's pretty much it for today. As I say, lots of other assets. Please, I've had a couple of people, as I say, I covered ICP upon request. I covered Injective upon request. Injective is a great AI token. And I'm happy to cover anything else that anybody specifically wants me to look at. Oh, just very finally, dollar yen. We've got an interest rate decision. I'm not sure whether it was today actually, but anyway, it's imminent on Japan. They were going to keep rates on hold, so no doubt they've kept rates on hold. The talk in the market is that they're probably going to raise rates maybe by next March again in Japan. And what Japan are worried about is they're actually concerned. We can see here the Japanese yen has been weakening dramatically against the dollar. And they're concerned about that. The reason being, as the yen gets weaker and weaker, Japan are a big importer of many things, oil being one of them, for example. So as such a big importer, when the yen gets weaker, they have to basically pay more and more and more yen for these imports. And there's a lot of things that Japan imports. So that's why the Japanese monetary authorities are very concerned about this dramatically weak yen. I mean, I used to trade it years ago when it was down at 70 and 80. And now it's 153. It's
wow.
weak. The yen has weakened massively. So this is why it's a concern. It basically means that imports are very, very expensive for the Japanese. So as I say, they're looking at March. So nothing much. It just depends on what they communicate verbally, because they're not going to do anything interest rate wise until at least March. But they'll be talking, maybe talking, a bit hawkish to try to maintain a bit of yen strength. But at the moment, we can see very clearly it's weakening. We've already surpassed the 1.618, so it looks as though we're still going to go higher with the yen. That actually means risk on with the markets. So markets potentially still got higher to go. So that's it for today. Thank you, Bruce. Thank you, everybody. And I hope you all have a great weekend. I'm looking forward to a bit of a break and catch up Monday.
Amazing. Matt, thank you so much. It is always a pleasure.
My pleasure. Thanks.
Cheers. The great Matt Dixon with the Market Watch report. I'll tell you what, I've been trading a lot better over the year that we've been doing the show. So it is really good. If you follow these signals, there's a lot that can happen. I have with me here queued up an interview that I did with the great Vineet Bhutke, I think it is, and this is from Consensus, and Vineet is he's the CEO of Cipher Capital, and he's really a great all around guy anyway. And I wanted to play it. He still has money to deploy, and he is making moves. So this was from Consensus that I did this interview. Check it out.
And we are back here at the Consensus 2024 conference here in Austin. Austin finally got hot. It wasn't really hot yesterday, but today it's a little hot. Nothing like this guy's used to, though, over in Dubai. I have with me here Vineet Bhutke. He's a big name in the space in general. And in Dubai, I mean, Dubai, they do it big anyway, so I guess it makes sense. Yep. So tell me a little bit, Vineet, about, of course, about Cipher Capital and what brought you here to the Consensus event.
Cool. It was good to be here. So I run Cipher Capital, which is one of the $100 million funds based out of Middle East. It's a single LP fund. In fact, Wu Blockchain just named us as one of the top two most active VCs in the last quarter. And in gaming, we are the top 5 investors as well. Again, we've been in this space for 4 years. My single LP is one of the world's top 3 Bitcoin miners, Phoenix Technology, the owner of Phoenix Technology. And it's been a fun ride because, we we did great investments, met great founders, and continuously try to do that. Yeah. As well as, taking Dubai globally, investing across from Dubai. Now, what got us to Consensus? So I've been here for the last 3 years. Mm-hmm. I view this event as one of the key events to meet great founders, meet great investors. Again, perfect event to meet a lot of people. If you can see around, you see a lot of people going around and a lot of great projects around. So a great event to be in.
Well, absolutely. And, one of the second most active. I mean, guys, there you go, right? So how has the crypto winter been for you guys? I mean, were you still deploying? Did you take all its capital? This is kind of did you put it all in dollars as everything went down, or what was the crypto winter like for Cypher Capital and Vineet?
So interestingly, when the last bull run was happening, and everyone was saying that when the bear market will come, we'll deploy a lot. Actually, I have a feeling that every time Bitcoin's at $70,000, everyone's a Warren Buffett, and when it goes down, suddenly everyone run out and hide.
Right.
For us, luckily, we had deployed a lot in the last cycle and did a lot of harvesting. The same LP who gave me $10 million gave us $100 million, and we deployed. So, when I say we did 113 investments in last 18 months,
wow.
They were not last month. They were in the bear market. We did Sui. We are the only investors in Sui in Middle East. We did Say. We did Berachain. So, point is, we actually deployed because we could find amazing founders trying to do amazing things, and no one having capital to give it to them. And today, one of my games that I invested, which people were saying that maybe may not survive $30 million or $40 million was its FDV that time, opened up at $1 billion valuation. My Pet Hooligan. It came on Coinbase.
Congratulations.
So the actual gems are always in the bear market in the winter, not in the bull market.
That's when people are working, right? They're in the trenches.
Yeah.
Well, Sui, I know we went to we covered their base camp in London as well. That's what a thriving ecosystem.
Yeah. So Sui, I think I'm sure you have met the founder, very active guy, building grassroots. This is not one of those founders who is talking a lot about marketing and showing ads every year, but actually going out and building developers. This is something that I have seen in India from Sandeep as well on Polygon. These guys are really going grassroots, getting developers on board, getting dApps on board, because in the end, crypto will not become big until users don't come on board. Right. And users will only come from dApps, which are lending dApps, gaming dApps, and number of products. So those guys are really doing a good job as well.
Well, it must be so fun and fulfilling, right? To work with these projects and have them succeed. I know gaming is kind of a fun space anyway. Is that your favorite kind of genre of what you guys go into?
So I actually looked at our portfolio. We have close to 25% exposure on gaming. Okay. And interestingly, I've been investing in gaming from the last 2 years. And GDC, 2 years back, I did some 11 investments. GDC, this year, I did another 5-6 investments. And now everyone's talking about gaming.
Right.
I think key reason for gaming being interesting is because how many layer ones will you build? You need users in that, and users will come with something that attracts them. And gaming is one of the biggest pullers of people. So I think gaming has a lot of legs to go.
Gaming has a lot of legs to it for sure. Now we're here at Consensus. We have more suits than ever. I always said Consensus. I remember going to Consensus in New York and looking around, and being like, "What am I doing here? Everybody's in suits. This is not what crypto is supposed to be." Here we have, it's kind of a mix. They moved to Austin a few years ago. We've been coming, I'm sure, the whole time. How are you seeing? I mean, are there more suits? Are they more accepting of what's going on? What's the temperature of these guys?
You should be happy the suits are there. They're all bankers,
I know.
They're trying to
pump my bag, right?
They trying to. So I actually every time I go to a conference and I see a lot of suits, I actually say this that I think the bankers are here.
Yeah.
Because crypto community is more younger community, more fun community. They're trying to change the world, but also enjoy along the way. But so for me personally in Consensus, I've been more towards the side event sites.
Yeah.
I hardly come to the main conference site because you want to meet the developers. And when you're randomly walking in a conference which has 10,000 people, you don't know who's who. But when you go to a dev event like a Sui event, or when you go to a event of Bera, these guys are developers on Berachain. So I prefer going there, meeting people, and there's a lot of energy there, a lot of fun there. Yeah. The event is good as well, but I go more towards the key events.
Well, yeah, that is interesting. And I mean, there must be over 150 different side events. I think there's at least 50 a day side events. One of them, of course, is our event, the Washington Legal. I think you have as well an event. He's promised that he's going to stop by, though. So we'll see him there.
I'll definitely be there. So in fact, mine today, we have 150 people, even 600 people have registered. So technically,
I know, it's
this place is crowded right now.
Right? Yeah. Well, really cool. So on the bankers note, I know we were laughing a little bit about the ETFs. They have brought a lot of money into the space. I feel like, and we talk about it on the morning show every morning, that I feel like money is now starting to flow into the other projects a bit more. But over the last 5 or 6 months, as Bitcoin was pumping so high with the news of ETFs and everything, it wasn't really dispersing as much to the other projects. What are your thoughts on the American ETFs?
See, first, I'm not a super fan of ETF because Bitcoin stands for your Bitcoin, your wealth. Now, ETF technically means your Bitcoin, someone else's wallet.
Yeah.
One of the key things is that people have to understand that you suddenly have added an intermediary to the whole process. Is it helpful for us? Yes, you're going to get a lot of money because people will start trusting. People start trusting an ETF because it is regulated. Again, I think FTX was also regulated in Bahamas. So, my whole thing is that yes, it will get money. You're not seeing the pumps that you saw earlier.
Right.
There is a reason for that because retail hasn't come.
Right.
Please understand that right now, this is not the place, but go to an Uber, go to grocery stores, you'll figure out that people are doing 3 jobs just to cover their rents and expenses. So if you see the latest consumer survey report where the numbers were, I think 57 out of 61 expected, people are not buying their food.
Yep.
How will they buy the crypto yet?
Exactly.
So what will happen is once the economy eases down in terms of interest rates coming down, I think during the election, people will go on the investment mode because gambling mode is already on. If you saw, there was a survey that the tendency to gamble has increased in the last 6 months. So what I see is that, yes, it's the institutionals buying it up who will diversify it in the retail soon, which is, I think, 3 to 6 months. But again, because, a lot of retail would be seeing this, you have to look at it from value investments. It's not that you will buy a Bitcoin tomorrow and become a millionaire. Those are just random stories to just hook you in. Bitcoin has real purpose, and by 2030, this will be a asset class which will be really regarded well. Kathy Woods and Michael Saylor are not idiots that they talk about $1 million Bitcoin. Because right now 400 million wallets, one wallet, one person, if I assume, which is not true, is 4% of the world population. 90% of these people actually have no clue what Bitcoin or Ethereum do. They just wake up in the morning to speculate on the Bitcoin price. Imagine the day this number becomes 15% of the population, which lends, borrows on Bitcoin, which uses stable coins in Africa and Latin America. The real use case and adoption will come up. That's the time when Bitcoin as an asset class or crypto as an asset class will be that 20 trillion or 30 trillion market cap. And that's what you have to play. You don't have to speculate. You have to actually be a real investor in it.
Yeah, well, that's really interesting. I agree with you. Absolutely, 100%. We're like, so Vineet, we've been going to Dubai for almost 6 or 7 years now. And Vineet is a big guy over there for sure. So, and we agree on a lot. Now, when we talk about Bitcoin and this second layer now that people are building on, I think that is also going to take a lot of supply away and push the price up. What are your thoughts? What kind of projects are you seeing? Are you interested in some of the projects that are building on Bitcoin? What are your thoughts on that?
So I actually have invested in a lot of Bitcoin layer 2s. Again, one of the biggest things, I was talking to one of the Ordinals founder and I said, I've been buying a lot of Ordinals. I bought a lot of Incon BTC. I bought a lot of Node Monkeys. My thing was, I was telling this jokingly to a founder, I press the buy button, go take a shower, have my breakfast, come back, and still the transaction is going on because Bitcoin as a network is quite slower. I think these people who are trying to build a layer 2, like Stacks, for example. Stacks is one of the existing ones, has been around. They're coming up with the Nakamoto upgrade. I've invested in a few. I've invested in B Squared Network as well. I've invested in Tap, which is more of building something other than Ordinals as well. So I think this will really make it more easier for people to come on board because first, getting a normal person to use something which will take half an hour is not user experience. And it will add value. Just that, so many building up. I was in Hong Kong recently and I had everyone saying, I'm a Bitcoin layer 2, I am a Bitcoin stablecoin. I think that's a bit of a hype and you really have to find out the real ones.
Yeah.
And then, either follow them, invest in them. I've invested, I've put my money in there. And I truly believe that definitely has legs to grow as well.
Yeah. It actually was one of the reasons why I'm as bullish as ever on 7-figure Bitcoin. That's one of the reasons. You have people making up these NFTs on Bitcoin, ordinal NFTs, and they're just sending them off, thinking they're sending them to Satoshi. You know what I mean? They're like sitting there on old addresses, like God only knows if anybody's ever going to see.
One of the key use cases in there. So one of the problems that we see is, there are around 20 million Bitcoin, but are they liquid enough? People have it in wallet and they can do anything from this. Now with these Bitcoin layer 2s, with this Bitcoin lending and borrowing platform, they're actually trying to move liquidity from Bitcoin to other chains. Imagine the liquidity unlock that is possible.
Yeah.
And this is really, really huge. In fact, one of the other segments that's trying to do this is in the RWA space as well.
Yep.
We take our Bitcoin, wrap it up, go to Aave Compound, borrow against it.
Right.
tomorrow, imagine your house title deeds land up on chain and people lend and borrow against it. You see the real estate market globally. So again, a lot of these liquidity movement and getting people to actually earn yields on that is real use cases. These are not, I launch a token and suddenly it goes up. Because, retail has been so hyped up around these meme coins as well recently. Personally, this is the best way to hook on people.
It is.
You read stories of a millionaire becoming on meme coin and then suddenly the retail comes running to everything.
It has been so interesting. Thank you so much for sitting down. It is a pleasure. How do people find you? What's the website? Final thoughts.
If it's all about reaching out for investments to Cypher Capital, we are on cyphercapital.com. I'm personally available on Twitter at Vineet Budke. My Telegram ID is VineetDXP. You can drop me a message and I can connect you to the team if you're looking to raise a good project. Something that you have expertise to build in and you have previously done something around it. We are happy to invest. We still have a lot of capital to deploy.
Vineet, thanks so much for coming on.
Pleasure. Thank you for inviting me.
Thank you.
Your voice is powerful. When combined with social engagement, it's a force for change. Decentralized media paired with free speech is the catalyst for an empowered world and a unified, invaluable ecosystem. Join Global Boost, become a champion of free speech, and help to reshape the future of media.